Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adam Smith, and today we continue the showcase for Unstoppable from Renegade Game Studios. So join me now as we dive into a solo play together using Kai Silver, the Reluctant Bodyguard, going up against the Harbinger. And for those that checked out the How to Set Up video, you'll remember that inside the Cultivate Power card, I had left an upgrade inside of it. I've gone ahead and removed this, and I placed that upgrade card inside the upgrade deck and shuffled it up. For those that are interested in seeing the game unboxing or the How to Set Up video for Unstoppable, I'll put a link to the entire showcase so far in the top right hand corner. The How to Set Up especially will show you how all of this got to the table. Without further ado, let's dive into our very first round of play. A nice touch from Unstoppable is that on the playmat itself, it has the turn sequence listed out. So it has upkeep phase, then draft phase, main phase, threat phase, and finally cleanup phase. Now for the upkeep phase, there's not much to do right now because typically you just gain 3 action points, which you place in the bottom right hand corner, which we already have, refresh any allies which are in play, we don't currently have any in play, and then resolve any upkeep effects at this time, but we don't have any, so we jump right to the draft phase. Going into the draft phase, you're going to find where your small level disc resides. Currently, it's above the core level 1 deck. It's also sitting on top of the large level disc. And when you go into a draft phase, it may not always be in connection with that large disc. It might have actually moved further up the track, which would mean you could draft from a higher level. That's part of the strategy you can try and employ to get that small level disc further up to get better cards earlier on. So drawing 3 cards off the top of the core level 1 deck, here are our options. We have 3 tactic cards. Now they're across 3 different factions, which is kind of cool. It is worth mentioning here, I do have 1 card in hand currently, which aligns with the one in the middle in terms of the same faction. Doesn't necessarily mean I want to choose that one because we want to take a look at the abilities at the bottom of the card and also how much it costs to use it. You'll see this one here is going to only cost, well, nothing. This one's going to cost 1 and this one will cost 2, but each of them have unique effects. Each one of these cards are great for different reasons, so it's a tough choice right off the bat. We have this one here, which is going to focus on throwing damage on the enemy for 1. It also allows us to bargain where we pay credits equal to the bargain rate, which is 3, but we get a discount based on how many of this type of faction cards we have in play, in hand, etc. All detailed there on the card, so essentially a discount for upgrade cards. This one here, and of course that one's also not going to cost us anything, so that's very tempting. The Exceed Your Limits one here is going to have the small level marker move up 1 position, which is really beneficial for us digging into decks that are higher up than our current actual level. It also states once we have 5 or less health, we're going to start doling out some damage in addition. So that makes this card useful not only initially, but even more so when things start going south. So I'm kind of leaning towards this one. But then we have the local target here. This one costs 2. It's going to throw 2 damage on an enemy, which is already useful right out of the gates. And down below it says Unite, which means however many unique factions between cards you have in hand or in play, that's going to add into the Unite, which is going to allow us to eventually eliminate cards once we get up to 3+. I decided to take Exceed Your Limits. Let's see if we can actually do exactly that in this play. Now what we do is we go to the threat deck, which is to the left of the core level decks, and we're going to grab a card off the top, which is going to look like this, and we're going to sleeve the card we just took right in front of that V card. So you do this without looking, and now you can add this card directly to your hand. With a newly drafted card in the sleeve with the threat, make sure you don't look at the threat side of the card. It then goes into your hand just like this. The final thing to do in the draft phase after you draft your card is make sure that you reset the small level disc. Now, in my case, it's already sitting on top of my large level disc, so I don't have to do anything. But if your disc, for instance, had been here, let's say, going into the draft phase, you'd be drafting by drawing 3 cards from the level 2 deck, picking 1, and doing what we just did to add it to our hand. Again, placing it inside the sleeve of the top card from the threat deck. But as soon as we're done that, we take the small level disc and we reset it back to wherever our level disc is. So as the game goes on, and you will see, we can actually upgrade the level of our character, and our character's level is tied to the larger one, whereas this small level disc can be increased during the course of the game to essentially allow you to snake away cards from higher level decks earlier than your character's actual level, which is very beneficial. We now move to the main phase where you play cards, exhaust allies, and buy upgrades. And you can do this in any order you choose, so long as you have the resources to spend to do it, and also the capacity based on the cards you're playing. So whether you can play cards from your hand will come down to whether you have enough action points to do so, and you have 3 by default to start off the game. Also, you start with 3 credits, which I have right here. These can be used to purchase upgrades. Speaking of upgrades, we've got 6 in a row, and here is a look at the first 3. The cost for them in the top right-hand corner. This one is Street Adrenaline, this one's Legitimate Pay, and this one is Hollow Plated, each one doing something different. Now you're going to see a tab, whether it's at the top or bottom of the card. This allows you to purchase it and then slide it into the sleeve between the threat and between the core card in order to enhance the core card, which is the top one that you're actually playing to get a benefit. So now when you play that core card, which might just have a whole bunch of nothing to start things off, will eventually have an upgrade inside of it, and that portion will stick through and you'll get that benefit going forward every time you play it. Something else to keep in mind is that every card that you have in hand has a core card in the front of the sleeve and a threat in the back of the sleeve. So upgrades go in between those, as I mentioned. So the other thing to keep an eye out for is the fact that the bottom of every upgrade card, when it's laying out in this row, will show you what the opposite side of this card is going to give to the threat card when it gets slid into the sleeve after you purchase it. So in essence, it's not always going to be a benefit for you. In this case, Street Adrenaline would give us an increase in action points when we play this, which by 1, which is awesome. But on the downside, when the threat comes back through into our draw deck, it's going to give the enemy on the back side of that same card the condition Fast. Now, if you're not sure what a threat keyword actually means, like Fast, for instance, you have this really handy reference card which shows the faction keywords, the threat keywords, as well as the faction icons you can see down below. And if you flip this thing over on the opposite side, you'll see a full reference of effect icons, threat icons, and boss icons. And here's a look at the other 3 upgrade cards I could potentially pick up. I'm going to spend one of the 3 credits I have to pick up the Databorn. I think it's going to be very useful. Let's slide it into one of the cards I have in hand. It's worth mentioning upgrades can go into cards that are in your hand or in play. I decided to add the upgrade to the Exceed Your Limits card, which should be a nice benefit to this card going forward, especially that it only costs 1 and will provide me with a lot of value in the future. Now, as you can see, I've replenished the spot where the upgrade was purchased, and we got ourselves a 1000-watt arc capacitor. This is also really tempting. It costs 2 credits, and that's how much I've got right now. The arc capacitor is mine. Let's go ahead and put it into one of the sleeves, and we'll replenish the upgrade row. I decided to turn this card into an absolute powerhouse. We fully upgraded this card with an upgrade on the top and the bottom. And the new upgrade in the row is a Badge of Honor. This is a very costly one at 4, and it's a very cool upgrade tactical ally card. Let's go ahead and play some cards. I'm excited to play the Exceed Your Limits card. I can tell you that much right now. We're going to go ahead and play that one right off the hop for 1 action point. When you play a card that has multiple effects on it, you get to choose the order in which they resolve. Now, each instance of these attack icons here for 2 damage is an attack against a single target. So in other words, you can't do a 2 attack and choose to break it up across 2 individuals. And before I start doling out damage for the card I just played, let's talk about how you determine the health value of the enemies to know how much damage you need to put on them. Their health is determined by their attack value and their defensive value. Now, the threats, the 3 of them in the battleground area over here, they do not have an attack and a defensive value on their cards right now. But an example of one that does is actually the on-deck threat, which is this one right here. So it has an attack value of 3 and a defensive value, but it shows a boss icon in the middle, which means you go to your boss sheet, take a look at where the danger marker is, the red tracker, and it's currently in a space at the beginning of the track, the very first space with numerical value of 0, which means nothing for defense. So the health of this enemy is just its attack value plus its defense of 0, so it's 3. So if we do 3 damage to this on-deck threat, we can kill it off. One of the benefits to focusing on that one versus something in the battlefield is some of these will give you a defeated effect that actually inflicts damage or some other effect that could be beneficial for you while you're doing combat. Now, it's worth mentioning that the on-deck threat is not going to attack you in the upcoming threat phase, but the individuals that will are in the battlefield. All these thieves, if they're still alive, are going to throw their attack values at me. As I mentioned with the on-deck threat, the health of all enemies is always their attack value plus their defensive value. If the enemy doesn't have a defensive value, you're just focusing on the attack value. In this case, for the thieves, they have a value of 1. They also have a boss icon attack value that would add more to it if we were further up the track for the danger level. We currently are at 0 on the track, which means these individuals are attacking for 1 and their actual health is only 1. So I'm going to go ahead and use my first attack of 2 to take out this one at the bottom right here. Only needed 1 anyway, but I can't use that additional 1. It just gets thrown away for now. But I do gain the card. This is one of the coolest factors of Unstoppable is when you take out an enemy, you actually flip that card over and you put that card in your hand. We're going to use the 1 hit down here and we're going to use it against this thief. And that's another card added to hand. We have 2 icons on the Exceed Your Limits card, which allows us to move the small level disc up 2 positions total. So let's go ahead and do that. Now I'm really looking forward to that future draft phase. And now we're really going to bump things up. We're going to go ahead and spend an action point right now in the top right-hand corner to go ahead and bump that level disc one more time, and then we can go ahead and Conspire. And Conspire is awesome because if we have another card in play or in our hand that matches the same faction as this, which I literally just played, we can move it one more position. So that level disc is now like a cruise missile going across these decks. Now you'll notice that this card will become even more useful as time goes on, but it's based on your character's level, which is the large level disc, which for me is currently at level number 1, so I can't take advantage of level 2 or level 4 benefits. At this point, we've got one more action point remaining. I've got 4 strike cards in hand, so we're going to go ahead and spend the last one right now in order to do 1 damage, which is all we need to take out the thief. And just like that, Kai Silver has done his job as a bodyguard. It's like he's done this before. He's cleared out the entire battlefield for the round. We're now moving to the threat phase, and normally at this point we take a look at the different attacks coming at us based on the attack values of the individuals in the battlefield, and we would use armor on our dashboard to try to soak up as much of that damage as possible. Once our armor reaches 0, then we start taking HP hits from our 10 health down to 0. If we ever reach 0 during this phase, that is of course a loss. We don't have to worry about that right now, so we're moving from the threat phase to the cleanup phase. We're now inside the cleanup phase. The first thing we do is discard all played tactic cards. Now, all 3 of the cards I played during my turn were tactic cards, and I know this based on the keyword, which is right in the middle of the card. You might have played ally cards. If you played those, make sure they stay in play. We'll touch on those again in the upkeep phase. Next, you lose all unspent action points. So if you had any action points that were sitting in here at the end of your turn, they're all gone. If you happen to have any armor built up at this point, I have 0, but let's say you had 3, you lose all of it at this point. It resets itself back down to 0. We now go ahead and refill the battlefield. In my case, I don't have any active threats in there, but you always refill the battlefield up to 3 if there's not threats there already. So if there was 1 threat left over, you'd only be refilling with 2 cards. The total in the battlefield, once you've replenished, should be 3. We got a much more interesting battlefield going into the next round. We got ourselves a boss threat in here, as well as a human and a monster. The danger level increases as we go through the game, so we're going to be moving this danger marker. You'll see the icon again. It relates back to the icons we saw on the back of the threat cards earlier. So we want to make note of the value that it moves into. It's going to be a 0 again for this coming round, but the next round it will uptick to 1, and you're also going to start seeing some symbols inside of these spaces, and we'll talk about those when we hit them. Again, worth mentioning, depending on the difficulty level you're playing on, whether it's normal or one of the higher tier difficulties, you're going to skip either the green spaces, the yellow spaces, or the red spaces, respectively, based on how difficult of an experience you want. For me, I'm playing on normal difficulty, so I'm skipping the final 2 green spaces. And in order to defeat the boss and win the game, we need to deal this boss 12 damage per player. As I'm playing true solo, we just need to put 12 on. If there was another character involved, it would be 24 damage. And I'll show you exactly how damage is placed on this boss as I continue the play. That's going to do it for one full round of play. Let's pick the speed up as we continue the play against the Harbinger to see whether or not Kai Silver can take this boss down. So first off, we have the upkeep phase, which we skipped over in the very first round. So we're going to gain 3 action points back into our pool. We're going to refresh the allies we have, and I don't currently have anything. And we're going to resolve any upkeep effects, but there aren't any at this time. And as we were able to increase our small level disc way up to level 5, we are drafting from the level 5 deck, which is a lot more fun than the level 1 or 2 deck. So we got ourselves 3 awesome looking cards here. Now check out these cards. On the far left, we start with the Grand Emporium. For 1 action point, we can get a card that allows us to gain 7 credits. We also have a bargain 7 on this that can dole out some serious damage on top of it. We have Star Caller right here. This one allows us as an ally. When this gets played into play, it will stay there, and then you can tap it 90 degrees in order to gain action points. That's pretty awesome. And then we got Ambush over here. This one is going to be an automatic 2 additional action points, and then it says to draw 1 card from the bottom of your deck. Out of the 3 cards, the one I'm probably the most excited for is the Grand Emporium. It's a great card at 1 cost, allowing me to get 7 credits, and at that point I could just walk away, go get some upgrades, or instead I could optionally bargain 7, again, bargain 7 minus however many of the faction cards that I have in play or in hand that match this, including this card, so I could reduce that rate down and pull off a couple attacks if I need them, and having an attack of 3 and 3 early in the game like this would be very helpful, and of course the credits for sure on their own for upgrades would be very helpful. And just like that, the Grand Emporium's been added to my hand. I've slid it into a threat card from the top of the threat deck, which happened to be a blue one. It is now going into my hand, and also I reset the small level disc back to core level deck 1. We're now heading into the main phase where we can play cards, buy upgrades, or potentially tap allies I don't have for conditions I wish I had. And I'm really hoping to get an ally at some point to show you guys that. But for now, let's focus on what we have going on here because we have a very interesting array of individuals here. So first off, on the on-deck threat, normally, as I mentioned before, the attack does not matter because this individual is not going to attack me. But what it will do when it has the taunt keyword or taunt condition is that it's going to force me to actually go after this on-deck threat rather than anything else in play. And we also have another one, which is an active threat in play. The Sporling has taunt as well. So we have two enemies that currently have the taunt keyword on it. So before I even get a chance to focus on the one I really want to focus on, which is the boss threat card right here, because if we actually take this one down, not only do we get 4 additional damage to then chain reaction hit something else, we could also get ourselves some damage on the boss by taking out this boss threat. But I can't even touch that thing until both of these taunt condition enemies are gone. So knowing this, I'm going to go ahead right into the gates and play my Grand Emporium card. It's going to cost me 1 action point, so we'll go ahead and remove 1, and we're now going to gain 7 credits. Now with the 7 credits I just gained, I'm going to go ahead and bargain. It's a bargain 7, so it'll cost me 7 minus 1 for every other card that's of that faction, including this card. So I get a minus 1 discount off that charge, so it's going to end up being 6. So we'll remove 6 of the 7, keeping 1 credit, and now I can do 2 attacks of 3. Now, it doesn't matter which of the 2 individuals I choose to hit with this first attack because they both have taunt. I need to get rid of both of them to touch anybody else anyway. So the first 3 damage attack, I'll put on the Sporling over here. This thing has an attack of 1, a defense of 1, and the boss threat value right now or danger level is at 0. So it's going to be 2 health to take it out. So 3 and 2 is easily enough. Knocking this one out, we gain this card, and it states on it, price of business, a nice one to put in hand. Next up is the Doe on the left-hand side. This one has a 2 attack value, and the defense is based on the danger level, which is currently 0. So again, 2 health on this one, and a 3 hit from the card is going to be more than enough to take this one out. Let's see what we get on the top of the card, flipping it over. It is some credits. So not bad. 1 card played, 2 enemies gone, but we still have 2 in the battlefield we need to focus on. Let's go ahead and play Price of Business. This is a great card. I'm going to pay 1 action point. I get to gain 2 credits. If I had 7 or less health, though, then I'd only gain 1. I definitely want one of those medical adrenaline upgrade cards. We're going to go ahead and pay 3 credits to pick one up. I'm going to take the one on the lower portion of the upgrade. I'm going to add this upgrade to my spare credits card. It costs nothing for action points to play. It always generates me 1 credit, but now it'll boost my action points. And the new card in the upgrade row is Fortified. Let's go ahead and play that spare credits card. It's going to give me the 1 credit as well as 2 action points. Let's go ahead and grab a credit, and we'll also grab 2 more action points. With 3 action points left to spend, I'm going to decide to use all of them on strike cards. They're 1 each, and they're going to do 1 damage each. So we're going to go ahead and pay for 3 of them, and that's going to do 3 damage, and I'm putting all of it on this boss threat. The boss threat's health is currently 3. And the best part about this is that when it's defeated, we get a 4 damage attack, which I'm going to throw at the final enemy in the battlefield. However, before that, we flip the card over and we can see it's called Order of the Harbinger. It says, when this card enters your hand or enters play, deal 1 damage and put it in your discard pile. While in your discard pile, this card cannot be targeted or affected. This card cannot be eliminated. That's going to be our very first damage out of 12 that we need to take the boss down. With the 4 damage that came from the boss threat card, we're going to place on this final card in the battlefield. Let's find out what it is. It's going to clear the battlefield, and we just gained ourselves a strike card. So overall, I'd say that was a very productive round. That's the second round we were able to clear the battlefield completely. That wraps up the main phase. Now we're moving into the threat phase, and it's worth mentioning something. You'll see a condition here on the on-deck threat right now. It says Rage, and that means during the threat phase right now, for each Rage threat on the battlefield, discard 1 ally from play. Good thing I don't have any allies, and good thing we don't have anyone on the battlefield anyway. This enemy, this threat, is not in the battlefield area. It's on top of the deck. It's the on-deck threat, and so only individuals in this area with a Rage condition would actually be able to go ahead and take away an ally from me, but it's not going to happen anyway, so we're moving on. Now into the cleanup phase. The only cards left in my hand are 2 strike cards, and the first thing we do is discard all the cards that are tactics. They have been discarded. Lose any unspent action points. We didn't have any. Reset our armor to 0. It was already at 0. We refill the battlefield, and you'll see after putting 2 cards in there, not being able to put the 3rd one in, we've gotten to the end of the deck. You'll see right on the player dashboard itself, it states when to level up, if your deck is empty when there are no active threats, or if your deck is empty when a new threat must be added. And we have hit that second condition, so we are going to level up right now. At this time, both the level discs are going to increase by 1, so we're going from core deck level 1 to core deck level 2. We now discard tactics and allies from play. We don't currently have any, and we discard down to 3 cards in hand, but we only have 2 anyway, so nothing to worry about on step number 2. Number 3, we can optionally eliminate any one card we have. It is worth mentioning you can discard a card from your discard pile, but you can't discard a card like this. I'm going to eliminate this card from my deck as I have many of them in there, and that's going to remove this threat from my deck as well. We're not going to resolve any boss effects at this time, and we have one. It says when you level up, take the top card of the boss deck, which is this right here, and put it in your discard pile unless the deck is empty. The final step is to take the discard pile now with that new card added into it, shuffle it all together, and we're going to go ahead and place it where the draw pile is, and we're going to draw 1 more from the top to make 3 in the battlefield. That's going to do it, and the final step now of the cleanup phase is to move the danger marker by 1. The danger marker is going to move 1 position, and as you can see, it's going to increment to 1 for the very first time, going from 0 to 1, which means anytime we see this icon on any card, it's now going to equal 1. There's also an effect that's happening in this space. It's known as the market cycle. So this states, when the danger marker reaches this space, you may cycle any number of upgrades from the market to the bottom of the deck, and then you refill the market. So essentially, it allows you to get cards out of the upgrade slots that are currently available if you don't plan on buying them because maybe you can't afford them, or maybe you don't like them in general. I've looked across all the upgrade cards and I actually like a lot of what I'm seeing here, but the one thing I did notice is there's none here that have to do with damage anymore, and it would be nice to have the option to pick one up if I need one. So because I have a lot in here that allow me to upgrade the amount of action points that I have, I'm going to get rid of one of the ones that doesn't give as much, and that's going to be the Street Adrenaline. This one costs 2, gives me 1, whereas the Medical Adrenaline that I have, which is actually way off to the far right off camera, is a cost of 3 and gives me 2. I'd rather keep that one around and grab that later potentially, but for now I want to see some more damage hopefully coming off the top of this deck. So let's go ahead and take this one away and reveal a new one and see what we get. We got ourselves, oh, that could be interesting, although it's got quite the condition that will provide itself to the enemy. If we take this, it does have this really cool effect at the bottom, as does 2 other cards in this row that I haven't talked about yet, but essentially it's a cost discount in credits if you tie that upgrade when you purchase it to a card that matches the faction it's talking about. So as an example, close up, you can see the compad link here, and at the very bottom it says cost 2 credits less if added to a council card. Now it's time for the upkeep phase, which for me is simply just placing 3 action points in the bottom right hand corner of my playmat. Inside the draft phase, we're currently sitting at core deck level 2, and from that deck, as you can see, 2, 2, 2 across the bottom, we've got 3 cards. 2 of them are free for action points, which is awesome. This one would cost 2. Now, the cool thing about all these cards is I could see me picking any of them for a number of reasons. This one's the most simplistic, costs the most. It's going to give me 2 damage and also allow me to eliminate a card. That can be very beneficial over the course of time, especially this early in the game. Also, we have this one in the middle here that's huge. This one says deal 2 damage for each movement of your small token, your small level token. And that's crazy because as you saw in my very first play, I have enough movement there. I think I did 4 movement, which would be 4 separate 2 damage attacks if I was to pull off the same type of round 1 that I had while going ahead and using something like this. It could be incredible for the amount of damage that I could throw at the enemy. So this might be the right one to get right now based on my deck makeup. And then dodge is huge too, because this is also free but gives me an extra action point. It also increases my health when I start taking hits, plus allows me to bargain too. Choices, choices. I can't seem to walk away from this card. I've got to take it. It's going to get sleeved into the top card of the threat deck, which is this one right here. Now let's go ahead and pick up an upgrade for a cheap discount because we have a council card in hand, as I just picked up and drafted this one, which allows me, as it's a council card, to take advantage of this where I get a 2 credit discount on this card, making it only actually cost 2 less if added to a council card. It'll be literally free. No way. And check out the card off the top of the deck right after that. So this Practice Makes Perfect just got an upgrade for free thanks to the discount. And guess what? I've got 1 credit to spare. I'm absolutely buying Empowered. We're going to put it on that Practice Makes Perfect card. I've done all the upgrading and card swapping that I can possibly think of. Let's now try and see what we can do to these threats. All right, right off the top here, we have to focus on the fact that we have one threat that has taunt on it, so we have to focus on that. We don't have to worry about the rage because I don't have any allies in play. Even if these individuals last through this entire round on the battlefield, they're not going to be able to take out any allies as I don't have any, but the taunt is going to be a focus right now. So let's go ahead and play the card that I just gained and then souped up to the max. We got Practice Makes Perfect. This one's going to cost us absolutely nothing. We gain the top card of the level 1 or level 2 deck into our hand. That is the first trigger I am going to use on this card. Well, the level 1 one is absolutely perfect for my combination with Practice Makes Perfect, so I could take that one right now, and it would definitely give me an additional attack of 2, or I could go for this one, which is an ally for the very first time, allowing me to heal. No, I am way too tempted by the data transfer. With that new card in hand, we can continue to resolve the rest of Practice Makes Perfect. Now, unfortunately, in terms of order of operations here, I have to resolve all the rest of Practice Makes Perfect, which means I have to resolve this effect here before I can even use the card I just gained in order to try to bump up that small level marker. So unfortunately, I won't be able to take advantage of this portion down here, but I still get this, and the 2 I can throw on an enemy. So the 2 damage from the side of the card upgrade is going to go on the Taunting Threat. So it's not enough to take it out because remember now, defense value has gone from 0 to 1. So now the health of this thing is, as always, attack plus defense. So 2 plus 1 is 3. We need one more hit to take this one out. So we're going to have to go ahead now and spend something, maybe on the strike side of the equation, to get that final hit. So we'll spend 1 action point to do the 1 damage, and that will take out that doe. The doe provides us with spare credits and action points. It's not looking like I'm going to be able to deal with many more threats with what I have in hand. I only have 1 more damage to throw out, so I'll probably hold on to it, or maybe I'll use it, but I'll certainly use data transfer right now. This will allow me to at least push up what I can draft in the future by 1. At this point, this is all I have left in hand, so I'm going to hold on to these 2 cards and unfortunately not use the rest of my action points whatsoever. I had a lot of cards that were free. This wasn't as much of a productive turn, and I've got some problems coming at me in the future here. So at this point, the threat phase is going to happen, and there are threats in there. They're going to come at me. So this threat here is going to come at me for 2 damage. This one's going to come at me for 2 damage, and this is a defensive icon, so it doesn't add into the fray. But that is 4 total hits because I have no armor. That's going to drop me from 10 down to 6. A pretty good smack. That's going to do it in terms of attacks coming at me. We discard all our tactic cards. We lose all our action points that we actually didn't use, which is really unfortunate. Resetting the armor to 0 already was there. We're going to refill the battlefield. It's simply just placing 1 card out. And the danger level is going to increase by 1, so we're still currently at a numerical value of 1 for this icon, but you'll see something else here. For 1 credit, we can eliminate a card if we wish, but I don't currently have any credits, so we're not taking advantage of that. The small level disc is 1 position higher than my current level, so we're currently grabbing from core level deck 3, which is not bad. So we got a Viren Strategy here, Overclock, and National Target. Now looking across these 3 cards, all of them great for different reasons. The Overclock one is the one I want long term, but unfortunately I need something right away that can benefit me because I need to be able to do something to take out one of the threats of the battlefield to hopefully start a chain reaction to take out more of them so I don't take too much damage. So we're going to focus on Viren Strategy. The threat card that I got on the back side of this Viren Strategy card is a purple V card. Also worth mentioning, the small level disc is now back with the main level character disc. Now we're going to go ahead and see if we can pull off against these threats. The obvious one to go after right now is the boss threat one because it's going to allow me to do a when defeated 3 combat hit against something else after I take this one down. So we're definitely going to go after the Acolyte. So we're going to go ahead right now and we're going to spend the Viren Strategy card, or maybe what we'll do, yeah, I guess we will. We'll spend 1 action point to get 2 hits, which is perfect. That's going to get us almost there. We need to have 3 to take this one down currently. So we'll put 2 on there, and then we're going to go ahead and spend another action point in order to do a strike, which is the 3rd and final one necessary to take it out. And it's a boss-specific card, so that's 1 damage going to the boss for a total of 2 out of 12. We've got 3 damage to spare, so let's go ahead and throw it against the Back Alley Blade Master and take that one down. We gain a credit for taking it out. And when flipping it over here, we got some good stuff on the other side. This is an ally. We do have 1 action point left to spend, so I'm going to spend it to bring this ally into play to be able to tap it. It allows me to deal damage equal to 10 minus our current health, which is a lot of damage right now. So to play the card out in front, we're going to pay 1 action point, which is the last one that we have. And we're going to go ahead and tap this one. We're going to lose a health, and then we're going to go ahead and do a number of damage, minus 10. So it's going to be a total of 5 damage to the final threat in the battlefield. And that's going to provide us with another strike card. Let's go ahead and pump the brakes for a second and end off our turn right here. That's going to take us into the threat phase. There's no threat to deal with, so we can go right past that into the cleanup phase. Well, my friends, we have different types of conditions coming in with these threats now. You'll see the keyword fast, and what this means is fast threats do not count towards the limit of 3 active threats. So during this cleanup phase, we continue adding threats until there are 3 non-fast threats on the battlefield and a non-fast threat on the top of the deck. We've only got 2 non-fast threats in the battlefield right now, so we have to draw another one. That's going to do it. We're going to advance the danger. It's going to go into a space that still has the danger icon representing 1, but it does have an icon that tells us we are able to do a market cycle if we wish. I should probably work on trying to get some of the overly expensive ones out of here, like Wanted, for instance, is probably one I won't be able to actually obtain, and then get rid of some of these other ones that I don't plan on using, although getting more credits in the future for this one would be great. These ones can be obtained by having the right card to pair with it. You get a discount for these 2, but I'm not sure if I need this. I don't think I need any more action points, to be honest. I think the problem I'm having now is having enough cards to be able to use the action points from the deck that I've created. I'm refreshing 3 cards out of the row. Let's find out what the new 3 are. From the row of upgrades, we got ourselves a las pistol. This one says when exhausted, it's going to give ourselves a hit of 1. Not bad, so we can use that. It is a cost of 3, though. On the other side over here, legitimate pay. This one's going to allow me to get some more money, just like this one over here, but the top section versus the bottom, and this is going to cost 3. This one over here, 5, is flow skin armor. This looks really cool. This one states when exhausted, we get an action point. We get some defense. That's nice. It's also considered an ally, and we can get it for 2 less, which makes it just 3. If we attach it to a Viren card, that's not a bad option. In this upkeep phase, we got our 3 action points. This time we have an ally, so we're going to go ahead and refresh it so we can use it again. This draft is coming from the core deck level 2, and we got ourselves Apprentice Physician, Improvised Plan, and 3 meters under. As much as I probably need an improvised plan at this moment, I think these 2 cards might serve me better in this situation, being that I have 5 threats in the battlefield, which is absolutely terrifying, one of which has the taunt condition on it, so I have to focus on trying to take that one out at the bare minimum before I can even try to get any kind of synergy going with ripple effects from taking out enemies. I think the choice needs to be the one on the far right, 3 meters under. We need that damage. At this point, we need to make an attack against that taunting swirling in the top right-hand corner. It is currently at a health of 3. So in order to take this down, we're going to have to use 3 meters under and do a 2 damage attack and then a single attack to take it out. So we'll go ahead and spend 2 action points to use the entire card just to knock out the swirling. And it provides us this card on the opposite side, which actually we really need right now. Out of all the enemies that are out there right now, the worst one is going to be the Order Archivist. That's the one that's going to hit us for the most damage, but the benefit is if we take it out, it's going to allow us to do some damage to somebody else. So I think that's where my ally needs to go. The problem is I have to lose health in order to do this, so that's kind of scary, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. So we're going to go ahead and tap this one to lose a health, which I'm not sure I feel great about. That's going to allow us to do a 6 damage hit against this Archivist, and that's definitely going to kill it. We're also going to be able to do a 4 damage attack afterwards, but right now we flip this card over. Knowing it's a boss card, we do 1 damage to the boss. Now the 4 damage that it's going to dole out, we're going to choose to dole it out to this one right here, which is going to easily wipe it out. The great thing is when we take this one out, we get an action point back. We also get to throw another damage, and we get to move our small level up token 1 spot. And that also brings our really powerful card back into hand. So our small level up token is now moved to core deck level 3. We've also grabbed an additional action point, and the 1 damage I'm going to go ahead and throw it on probably this one right here, the Junker Cyclist. Let's go ahead with my strike card here for 1 action point. We'll go ahead and spend that to do a strike for 1 damage, which is all we need to take this one out, which is awesome. That's also going to give us a credit. We'll definitely take that. So we now have 2 credits over here on the side, and this is now gone. We get this card in hand, and this card is the Cultivate Power card. All right, next up we're going to go ahead and spend this one here for spare credits. It's going to give us 2 action points, which really isn't all that useful right now, but it could come in handy in a second. The real thing I'm trying to gun for here is credits, because what I'm trying to do is get 3 credits. Now that I have 3, I'm going to think about spending those 3 on this pay card right here to place the pay card in combination with Price of Business, because I think that would be a really nice combo and net me some nice credits going forward. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So we'll take this card out of the upgrade row. The new card replenishing that one once I put it in is going to be Medal of Loyalty. So that's going to go here. This one's going inside Price of Business to make it that much better. And we're going to use this one right now. This one's going to cost 1 action point, and that's going to allow me to gain 2, plus another 2 is 4, but it says here you gain only 1 instead of 2 if you have 7 or less. So we gain 1 and 2, so that's 3. So that ends up being a little bit of a recycle move, but it allows me to power up that card for the future to really start getting some credits in bulk. Last but not least, let's go ahead and use Cultivate Power. This one's going to cost 1 action point. It's going to allow us to move the small level marker 1 more position. So now we're up to core level deck 4, which is pretty awesome. And then it says Conspire. Now, Conspire states mandatory effect. We have to do this if there are at least 1 other card of the same faction as this card in your hand or in play, then we get this benefit as well. And we do. We have it right here. We also have an ally in play. So either way, we've got it. So we're bumping ourselves up with a small token up to the 5th level deck, which is great. Then next it says at level 2, which our character has to be, in other words, the large white level disc, not the small one, but the large one, we can choose to lose a health to deal 3 damage. I'm going to do it. It's going to be a little risky. We're dropping ourselves down to 3 to take out the final threat in here. The only prize we get is a strike card, and we are dangerously low on health, but we're able to wipe out that entire row of enemies. I'm feeling good and terrified all at the same time. We're going into the threat phase, but there's no threats currently on the battlefield, so we go to the upkeep phase. That's going to do it for the majority of the upkeep phase. We're going to move the danger marker in just a moment, but I first want to talk about the fact that I had exactly 3 threats in my deck left over, so all 3 were able to come into the battlefield, and the only reason you're going to trigger a level up is because of one of these 2 conditions here. If your deck is empty when there are no active threats, but there are active threats right now, then you'd level up, so we're still not going to level right now. And the second way is if your deck's empty when a new threat must be added. That's what happened last time. This time, neither of those conditions are satisfied, so we just continue on. And I'll tell you something else that's continuing on, and that is the danger marker. It does not stop, it continues, but now it increases to 2 for this symbol. Into a new round of play. At this point, we get 3 action points back. We refresh our ally that we have, the Guard Squadron, and we also resolve any upkeep effects, but we don't have any. We are going to go ahead and draft now, and we're drafting from the level 5 deck. And I'm hoping there's something awesome between these 3 cards, as our small level disc is quite a ways down the track. The one on the far left is an ally. We have 2 tactics. This one's cost 1, 2, and 0 respectively. So the ally here, each turn this card counts as any 1 extra faction type until the end of the turn. We can exhaust this to eliminate a card. The Master Your Will is a 5 damage hit with some defense. I mean, we could definitely use that. So I actually am very tempted by that middle one. Place up to 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck, then draw that many cards. That could actually be really good for recycling cards that I have in hand that are not that great. Let me just see if I understand that. Place up to 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck, then draw that many cards. Yeah, that actually could be very, very useful. We'll have to see if we pick that one. And then Joint Session here costs nothing. It's a Unite, draw up to X cards based on the Unite condition. And Unite is the number of unique factions in hand and in play. So it allows you to pull up more cards, which is not bad. Let's go ahead with the Master Your Will card. I need some heavy hits as we're getting further up the track and we have more enemies to deal with, and I really need armor. That's actually the main reason I'm picking this, because of how dangerously low on health I am. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can take some enemies down here. So let's use Exceed Your Limits. This one's going to cost me 1, so we'll go ahead and take 1 off the top. And this is going to allow me to do a number of different things. So first off, I'll go ahead and do the small level disc movement of 2 positions. So we'll go ahead and move ourselves up to core deck level 4 for that one, which is nice. And then we have the option to put 2 damage on something, and looking across the 3, I really want to focus on the one that's going to provide me with another hit after I defeat it, so that is going to be the Archivist. So we're going to go ahead and put 2 damage on the Archivist, and we need, now that this value right here is a 2, we're going to need a total of 5 on this. So we're going to go ahead now and put another 1 on it, and then this one says if you have 5 or less health, you deal 2 damage, and I do. So the 2 damage put on here is going to be enough to take out this boss threat. And that's going to net me another damage on the boss for a total of 4 out of 12 needed to win. The 4 damage from that boss threat, I'm going to go ahead and place on the Enforcer, which is going to take the Enforcer completely out as it has a health of 4. Again, its attack value is 2, plus the boss danger level of 2 for an attack. That's a total of 4. So this thing's gone. We gain 2 credits, so now we're up to a total of 5 credits, which makes me think we need to start thinking about what we want to purchase. And I like to see this card, the Grand Emporium, is back in my hand. Now, I certainly don't have any reason to want to lose any health by exhausting the guard squadron to do some damage, because that would just hurt me even more. I'm already pretty low on health. I could use any of these cards, but some of these blast out some serious damage, and I don't really want to use this or this right now because I want to hold them over to the next turn to see what kind of pain and suffering is coming my way. So I could go ahead with the strike, but it only does one hit, and the only thing I have up here from the upgrades, which you guys can't see off camera, in terms of what I could do to add to it, would be to pick up this pistol, which I could add to the strike card. I try not to add upgrades to the strike cards because I might end up eliminating them later on, but I might need to do this. But even if I do that, it's just 2 damage going on the thief, and it needs 3 to be taken out, so maybe we just sit tight. Although saying that, if we sit tight, this thing's going to come at me for 3 hits, and that's exactly enough to take my health from 3 to 0. So at the end of the day, we need to decide to do something, and I think what I need to do is use the guard squadron anyway. So we'll go ahead and tap them. We're going to lose 1 health in order to do a massive amount of damage, because it's going to be 10 minus our current health, which is 2, which is 8 damage to this thing to blast it away. We're currently not at level 3 yet, but very soon, well, actually the second we take this out just now, we have to do a level up, and going into the future, we'll be able to take advantage of a health heal off the Garden Squadron, which will be super helpful for us. As the deck is now empty, when there are no active threats, we're going to go ahead right now and do a level up. In this case, the level up is happening when both discs are not together, so each of them are going to increase by 1. But remember, the base one, the big one here, is representing my character's actual level. I now discard all tactics and allies from play and discard down to 3 cards in hand. So I'm going to go ahead and discard my guard squadron as it's an ally. Tactics cards have been played are gone. And also I have to discard down to 3. So I'll go ahead and take one of my strike cards and discard it. I've got the option to eliminate a card from my discard pile or my hand, so this is an interesting choice where you can choose a card that's just gumming up your deck in terms of not providing you a lot of benefit, like the strike cards, which is probably what I should do, or potentially getting rid of another card that I know has a nasty threat on it. I'm deciding to eliminate data transfer. I got this one and used it for the very topmost ability, but not the Unite X one down below. It didn't trigger that often. I really don't think I'll be using this much, and also it just eliminates another threat that I have to deal with, which I'm not a big fan of. And as we know, we go to the boss deck at this point, we add a new boss card into the deck, and so we're going to go ahead and shuffle this one in face down. We got ourselves this one headed in. At this point, we've completed the level up fully, but we are still in the main phase. I was playing cards to take out the active threats and did so. And so once all those active threats were gone and we didn't have any kind of deck sitting here, that triggered the level up, which we've now completed. I could choose to go ahead right now and play cards or go ahead and spend credits if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. I'm going to sit tight right now. We'll move to the threat phase. There are no threats to deal with, so cleanup is next. As we get towards the end of the cleanup phase, you'll see that we have a fast card coming in as one of the 3 cards in here, so it doesn't count towards the 3 non-fast cards in this battlefield area, so we still have to draw another one, so we're pulling in the Order Archivist. That's going to do it. We're going to now move to the boss card and advance the danger by 1. The danger marker is going to move, and this point's going to move to this slot right here, which is going to keep the value still at 2, but we have the ability to spend a credit if we wish to eliminate a card from our hand or discard pile. Currently, I don't have a discard pile, but I do have a hand of cards, and I do have a strike card inside of it, and I think I'll spend a credit to get rid of it. I feel pretty good about that, seeing as I kept 2 really powerful cards in hand to be able to hopefully chain react with the other individuals inside of this area right now. We do have one. If we take it out a boss threat, it will allow me to get 4 damage on one of these enemies. So I think between this card, and this card, we should be able to do enough damage to get through the majority of these threats and also get up some shields, so we actually can get through this round no problem, even while taking that strike card out of the equation. And also, I don't want to forget about my credits I have over here. I have a total of 4 currently, and of course that will increase depending on how I use my Grand Emporium. And we've got a number of cards up top here. The upkeep phase is pretty straightforward, so we'll go ahead and grab our 3 action points. We have no allies to refresh, no upkeep effects to deal with. Going into the draft, we're drafting from the level 5 deck. Now here's a look at the cards I could draft for this round. We got ourselves Court Physician. This one looks really cool. It costs a lot in terms of action points, but it provides quite a bit. When the card enters or leaves play, you gain 3 health. That is a massive boost, something I really need right now. And then if you exhaust the card, you get a damage, and you can also lose a health to refresh this card. That is crazy. Now, the Overseer over here, this ally, you go ahead and exhaust it to gain credits until the end of this turn. All bargain effects you resolve gain this effect. Deal 3 damage. So that's pretty cool, but I didn't focus much on these types of cards in my hand, so this may not be as beneficial for me. And then 10 meters under has X up here, and it says deal 10 damage. That's crazy high. You may split this effect as you choose among the targets. So that, I think, between one of these two, I'm going to throw it back to you guys. We're going to have a vote inside the Discord as well as on the YouTube community section of the site to see which one wins out of these 3 to draft next. So now it's up to you guys to let me know in the comments down below what you think I should do next in terms of which card I should draft. Also, what strategy should I employ with the 2 cards I have right here? Both are very powerful. I've also got some credits to spend, potentially some upgrades to pick up. Let me know all your thoughts, and I'll take a look through all of them and come up with a strategy based on what you guys provide me in the comments down below. Also, for the voting on the card draft, I'll have this up in the community tab on YouTube, right on the site where you can vote, or if you're part of the Discord, I'll have the polls up there as well. We'll combine all the answers, including what people put in the comments here, into the final selection of which card I should draft. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed part number 1 of Unstoppable from Renegade Game Studios. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.